Section 51 of the Endeavour Journal of Sir Joseph Banks. Journal from 25 August 1768 to 12 July 1771 by Joseph Banks. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Gail Timmerman Vaughan. Section 51. November 1770. 1770 November 1 to 3. My servants Peter and James were as bad as myself, and Dr. Solander now felt the first attacks of his fever, but never having been in his lifetime once ill, resisted it in a manner resolved not to apply to a physician. But worst of all was Mr. Monkhouse, the ship's surgeon. He was now confined to his bed by a violent fever, which grew worse and worse, notwithstanding all the efforts of the physician. 1770 November 4. At last, after many delays caused by Dutch ships, which came alongside the wharfs to load pepper, the Endeavour was this day got down to Onrust, where she was able to be hove down without delay. Most welcome news to us all, now heartily tired of this unwholesome country. Poor Mr. Monkhouse became worse and worse, without the intervention of one favourable symptom, so that now we had little hopes of his life. 1770 November 5. In the afternoon of this day, poor Mr. Monkhouse departed, the first sacrifice to the climate, and the next day he was buried. 1770 November 7. Dr. Solander attended his funeral, and I should certainly have done the same, had I not been confined to my bed by my fever. Our case now became melancholy. Neither of my servants were able to help me, no more than I was them, and the Malay slaves, who alone we depended upon, naturally the worst attendants in nature, were rendered less careful of our incapacity of scolding them on account of our ignorance of the language. When we became so ill that we could not help ourselves, they would get out of call, so we were obliged to lie still till able to get up and go in search of them. 1770 November 9. This day we received the disagreeable news of the death of Tahiti, and that his death had so much affected Tupaya that there was little hopes of his surviving him many days. 1770 November 10. Dr. Solander and myself still grew worse and worse, and the physician who attended us declared that the country air was necessary for our recovery, so we began to look out for a country house, though with a heavy heart, as we knew that we must there commit ourselves entirely to the care of the Malays, whose behaviour to sick people we had all the reason in the world to find fault with. For this reason we resolved to buy each of us a Malay woman to nurse us, hoping that the tenderness of the sex would prevail even here, which indeed we found it to do, for they turned out by no means bad nurses. 1770 November 11. We received news of Tupaya's death. I had given him quite over, ever since his boy died, whom I knew well he sincerely loved, though he used to find much fault with him during his lifetime. 1770 November 12. Dr. Solander, who had not yet entirely taken to his bed, returned from airing this even extremely ill. He went to bed immediately. I sat by him, and soon observed symptoms which alarmed me very much. I sent immediately for our physician, Dr. Jaggi, who applied synepisms to his feet and blisters to the calves of his legs, but at the same time gave me little or no hopes of even the possibility of his living till morning. Weak as I was, I sat by him till morn, when he changed very visibly for the better. I then slept a little, and waking found him still better than I had any reason to hope. 1770 November 13. As Dr. Jaggi had all along insisted on the country air as necessary for our recovery, I immediately agreed with my landlord Van Hayes for his country house, which he immediately furnished for us, and agreed to supply us with provisions, and gave us the use of 5 slaves, who were there, as well as 3 we were to take with us at $1 a day, 4s more than our common agreement. This country house, though small and very bad, was situate about 2 miles out of town, in a situation that prepossessed me much in its favour, being situate on the banks of a briskly running river, and well open to the sea breeze. 2 circumstances which must much contribute to promote circulation of air, a thing of the utmost consequence in a country perfectly resembling the low part of my native Lincolnshire. Accordingly, Dr. Solander being much better, and in the doctor's opinion not too bad to be removed, we carried him down to it this day, and also received from the ship Mr. Sporing, our writer, a seaman, and the captain's own servant, who he had sent on hearing of our melancholy situation, so that we were now sufficiently well attended, having 10 Malays and 2 whites, besides Mr. Sporing. This night, however, the doctor was extremely ill, so much so that fresh blisters were applied to the inside of his thighs, which he seemed not at all sensible of. Nevertheless, in the morn he was something better, and from that time recovered, though by extremely slow degrees, till his second attack. Myself, either by the influence of the bark, of which I had all along taken quantities, or by the anxiety I suffered on Dr. Solander's account, missed my fever, nor did it return for several days, till he became better. 1770, November 14. This day we had the agreeable news of the repairs of the ship being completely finished, and that she was returned again to Cooper's Island, where she proved to be no longer at all leaky. When examined, she had proved much worse than anybody expected, her main plank being in many places so cut by the rocks that not more than 1/8 of an inch of thickness remained, and here the worm had got in and made terrible havoc, her false keel entirely gone, and her main keel much wounded. These damages were now, however, entirely repaired, and very well too in the opinion of everybody who saw the Dutch artificers do their work. This completion of our repairs gave us hopes that our stay here would be of no very long duration, as we had now nothing to do but to get on board our stores and provisions. But our hopes were not a little damped by the accounts we had every day from the ship, where the people were so sickly that not above 13 or 14 were able to stand to their work. Dr. Solander grew better, though by very slow degrees. Myself soon had a return of my ague, which now became quotidian. The captain also was taken ill on board, and of course we sent his servant to him. Soon after which both Mr. Sporing and our seamen were seized with intermittents, so that we were again reduced to the melancholy necessity of depending entirely upon the Malays for nursing us, all of whom were often sick together. 1770, November 24. We had for some nights now had the wind on the western board, generally attended with some rain, lightning, and thunder. This night blew strong at southwest, and rained, etc., harder than ever I saw it before, for 3 or 4 hours. Our house rained in every part, and through the lower part of it ran a stream almost capable of turning a mill. In the morn I went to Batavia, where the quantities of bedding that I everywhere saw hung up to dry made a very uncommon sight, for every house that I was acquainted with, and I was told almost every house in the town and neighbourhood, suffered more or less. This was certainly the shifting of the monsoon, for the winds, which had before been constantly to the eastward, remained ever after on the western board. The people here, however, told us that it did not commonly shift so suddenly, and were loath to believe that the westerly winds were really set in for several days after. Dr. Solander was recovered enough to be able to walk about the house, but gathered strength very slowly. Myself was given to understand that curing my ague was of very little consequence, while the cause remained in the badness of the air. The physician, however, bled me, and gave me frequent gentle purges, which he told me would make the attacks less violent, as was really the case. They came generally about the hour of 2 or 3 in the afternoon, a time when everybody in these climates is asleep, and by 4 or 5 I generally had recovered to get up and walk in the garden, etc. The rainy season was now set in, and we had generally some rain in the night. The days were more or less cloudy and sometimes wet. This, however, was not always the case, for after this time we had once a whole week of dry, clear weather. The frogs in the ditches, whose voices were 10 times louder than those of European ones, made a noise on those nights when rain was to be expected almost intolerable, and the mosquitoes or gnats, who had been sufficiently troublesome even in the dry time, now breeding in every splash of water, became innumerable, especially in the moonlight nights. Their stings, however, though painful and troublesome enough at the time, never continued to itch above half an hour, so that no man in the daytime was troubled with the bites of the night before. Indeed, I never met with any whose bites caused swellings that remained 24 hours, except the midges or gnats of Lincolnshire, which are identically the same insect as is called the mosquito in most parts of the world, and the sandflies of North America. End of section 51. November 1770.